Welcome to another episode of Kev's Top Fact Videos. Now, thousands of humans go missing every day. Unfortunately, the explanation is usually crime, kidnapping, abductions, or murder. In other instances, a person can run away to escape something or forge a new identity. A missing persons case that can't be explained is considered a cold case. Of these cold cases, the vast majority have rational explanations. But investigators simply do not have the physical evidence they need to put the puzzle together. There are a small percentage of cases that seem to defy logic altogether. Number 1. Lieutenant Felix Moncla disappears mid-flight. In 1953, Lieutenant Felix Moncla was stationed at Kinross Air Force Base in Michigan. An unidentified object appeared on radar, and Felix took an F-89 Scorpion interceptor to investigate. Ground radar operators reported that Felix's aircraft flew at about 500 miles an hour and closed in on the object while crossing northern Lake Superior from west to east at 7,000 feet. At this point, operators claimed that on radar, Felix's aircraft merged with the UFO, at which point they both disappeared. A search and rescue turned up nothing, and no debris or wreckage was ever found from either aircraft. Canadian aviation authorities have since maintained that there were no planes in the sky at the time of the mysterious merger. Number 2. The ghost crew of the MV Joyita. Like much of the larger Titanic, the MV Joyita was considered unsinkable. But that didn't stop her from drifting in half submerged to the Fuji Islands with all her 25 passengers and crew missing, 37 days after a 2-day run to Tokelau on October 3rd, 1955. The Joyita disappeared somewhere in South Pacific, and when she was found, the ship was missing 4 tons of cargo, including medical supplies, timber, food, and empty oil drums. The radio was tuned to the International Marine Distress Channel. All the lifeboats were gone and blood-stained bandages were found. Number 3. Frederick Valenta and the strange aircraft. The case of Valenta is notorious for the creepy recording that accompanies it. In 1978, Cessna 182 light aircraft pilot Frederick Valenta reported a UFO while on his way to King Island in Australia. He claimed the unidentified aircraft was flying about 1,000 feet above him. Specifically, Frederick said, "That strange aircraft is hovering on top of me again. It's hovering and it's not an aircraft." Here we can listen to the exact words.
This is Delta Sierra Juliet. Is there any known traffic below 5,000 feet?
No known traffic.
Seems to be a large aircraft below 5,000 feet.
What type of aircraft is it?
I cannot confirm. It's 4 bright, seems to me like landing lights. The aircraft has just passed over me at least 1,000 feet above. Is there any Air Force aircraft in the vicinity?
No known aircraft in the vicinity.
Seems to be playing some sort of game. He's flying over me. Delta Sierra Juliet, it's not an aircraft, it's...
Can you describe the aircraft?
As it's flying past, it's a long shape. Cannot identify it, it has such speed. It's before me right now, Melbourne.
How large would the object be?
Seems like it's stationary. What it's doing right now is orbiting. The thing is just orbiting on top of me. It's also got a green light and a sort of metallic, like, it's shiny on the outside. It's just vanished. That strange aircraft's hovering on top of me again. It's hovering and it's not an aircraft.
Soon after, his aircraft began to malfunction and his plane disappeared from radar, never to be found again. Despite recent evidence that claims to debunk this case with a mere assertion that Frederick Valenta believed in UFOs, the final 17 seconds of the flight recording contained metallic noises that analysts are unable to explain. It also turns out that the Department of Transport's Aircraft Accident Investigation Summary Report contains a transcript of radio communications between Valenta and the Melbourne Flight Service Unit. This case gets even weirder. According to a Royal Australian Air Force spokesman, about 10 reports of UFO sightings were also documented during the same weekend of the disappearance, and a few years later, a man claimed to have discovered an artifact which contained a message from Frederick. Number 4. D.B. Cooper, the skyjacker who disappeared while evacuating a plane. D.B. Cooper is the name bestowed upon the most famous skyjacker of all time. On November the 24th, 1971, this still unidentified man hijacked a Boeing 727 aircraft between Portland, Oregon and Seattle, Washington, and extorted $200,000 in ransom before parachuting into the oblivion. The FBI has spent the last several decades trying to crack the only unsolved air piracy case in American aviation history. There have been many theories posed over the years, but no evidence. That is until recently, when Cooper's niece claimed she remembered her uncle stumbling in the night after the hijacking, badly injured. Marla Cooper also provided investigators with a photograph of her uncle and a guitar strap originally owned by Cooper for fingerprint testing. Tests of his fingerprints have still not conclusively proven anything though, and the mystery persists. Number 5. The multiple disappearances of the Bennington Triangle. The Bennington Triangle case involves a series of mysterious disappearances over the course of 30 years, between 1920 and 1950 in Bennington, Vermont. On December the 1st, 1949, veteran James Tetford is said to have vanished from a crowded bus on the way to St. Albans. 14 other passengers testified that Tetford was in his seat, sleeping, and was gone before the bus had arrived at its destination. A lengthy investigation was launched, but the man was never heard from again. On December 1st, 1946, 18-year-old Paulette Weldon disappeared while taking a walk. She was last seen by hikers who saw her rounding a bend along the long trail in Glastonbury Mountain. When they reached that location, she was gone and a subsequent investigation turned up nothing. In October 1950, 8-year-old Paul Jepson disappeared from a farm. Paul's mother, who earned a living as an animal caretaker, left her small son happily playing near a pigsty while she attended to the animals. A short time later, she returned to find him missing. An extensive search of the area proved fruitless. These are just 3 of at least 6 unexplained disappearances documented during these years. Number 6. Hippies absorbed by lightning at Stonehenge. Stonehenge is one of the 7th mysteries of the medieval world and used to be open to the public for camping and religious ceremonies. That was before August 1971, when England's iconic standing stones became the site of a creepy disappearance. A group of hippies pitched tents in the center of the circle and spent the night around a campfire smoking weed. According to a commonly accepted story, at about 2 a.m. a severe thunderstorm descended upon the Sainsbury Plain, bringing tremendous bolts of lightning. 2 witnesses, a farmer and a policeman, said that lightning struck the Stonehenge stones and absorbed the entire area in eerie blue light that was so intense that they had to cover their eyes. The witnesses heard the campers screaming, and when the lightning had passed, the witnesses ran to the stones. Naturally, they expected to find badly injured and burnt people who would likely be dead or close to dead. But to their amazement, they found no one, only burning tent pegs and the campfire. There is virtually no information on this story. Were the campers incinerated by the lightning? The story is even more dubious, but has persisted in urban legend and is made more famous by the fact that there are 4 major ley lines that converge at Stonehenge, and some say they create a powerful vortex. Number 7. The missing flight MH370, the great 21st century mystery or conspiracy. One of the most baffling mysteries in modern aviation history is now also one of the great conspiracies of the 21st century. On Saturday, March 8, 2014, Malaysian airline flight 370 disappeared while flying from Kuala Lumpur International Airport, Malaysia to Beijing Capital International Airport, People's Republic of China. What we do know is this: at some point the plane's transponder was turned off, and the flight changed paths sharply. During this time, no cell phone calls were placed by scared passengers or crew, no distress signals were sent out by the pilots, and no shred of wreckage has been found. The standard theories at this time are: a fire or technical problem on board caused the pilots to lose track of where they were and crash. But why were there no distress signal and passenger texts or calls? One of the standard theories are: the plane was hijacked and taken to a high elevation in order to render the passengers and crew unconscious while it was diverted. But how did the plane advert the myriad of international radar systems across such a vast expanse of land and sea? Another theory is the plane was thrown off course due to an onboard problem, then crashed somewhere in the Indian Ocean, where it quickly sank. Again, why were there no distress calls, and why was the transponder turned off? Conspiracies continue to persist, from the possibility that the Chinese hijacked the plane and flew it at a low altitude to avoid radar detection, to a hijacking via remote cyber terrorism. Recently, a student claims to have spotted the plane using satellite images. Number 8. The Lost Inuit Village, 1930 Roswell of the North. On November 1930, Canadian fur trapper Joe LaBelle stumbled upon what has been since termed the Roswell of the North. The Inuit or Eskimo village, nestled in the trees next to Lake Anjakili, contained a mystery that shocked LaBelle to his core. An entire village of Inuits were gone without a trace. LaBelle found the following: a charred stew that had recently been abandoned, huts containing large amounts of clothing and food, indicating that the villagers had abandoned their homes, a burial ground in which several graves have been unearthed and emptied, and a pack of slayed dogs which had been starved to death buried under 12 feet of snow. LaBelle went to the nearest telegraph office and sent a message to the Canadian Mounted Police, who embarked upon what would become almost a century of unanswered questions concerning what happened to an entire village of 2,000 industrial Inuits. They've since conveniently dismissed the entire case as an urban legend. Probably the creepiest part of this story is that on the night of the disappearances, there were separate reports by Mounties of a blue light travelling along the horizon, and an unidentified object that changed shape from a cylinder into a bullet-like object and seemed headed in the general direction of the village. The story has been challenged by many skeptics, who claim LaBelle himself exaggerated his story or simply made it up. Other skeptics say the story was made up by Frank Edwards in his 1959 book Stranger Than Science.